Every dealer knows the feeling. The hammer drops, you win the bid, and 5 minutes later, you find a mechanical issue that's going to cost you thousands. You head to the arbitration window, file a claim, and you get denied again. It's easy to blame the auction, but the truth is, most dealers are walking into the lanes without a clear strategy. We all know the NAAA guidelines in theory, but we also know that the reality on the auction floor is a different beast entirely. Today, we're bridging that gap. I'm sitting down with Rebecca Johnson, National Sales Manager at US Dealer Licensing, to break down exactly what you need to know before you hit the lanes. We're going to cover the slam dunk approvals, the normal wear and tear traps that are costing you money, and the gray area negotiations where the best dealers actually win. If you want to stop losing money on bad inventory and start mastering the arbitration process, this discussion is for you. Rebecca, we hear that the arbitration is one of the easiest ways for a dealer to lose money or get blocked from auctions. Why do you think that is such a frequent point of failure for new dealers?
I honestly think that sometimes they haven't even been to an auction before they're already trying to buy. So my suggestion is always, if you're going to go in the lanes, just listen. The first time, just listen to what the auction is. If you don't have that background, you'll get to know the ringman. You'll get to know the auctioneer. You'll get to know exactly what all the lights in the background are. If you're online, just listen. You'll see what announcements are going to be made. You'll get to see the condition report. And honestly, listen to green light, as is, auction guarantee. If they're making an announcement like frame damage, all that is going to affect the car. So you need to know what you're doing before you do it, not just try to wing it.
Yeah, I've been in the lanes and there is a lot going on at once. So
Yep.
that's great advice, because stepping in there for the first time and knowing basically where you need to focus, but also, I've heard from a lot of other dealers that just ask the other people that are there or the people working in the auction. They seem to be very helpful because everybody was there new once, right? So many dealers view arbitration as a dispute process. How should they be viewing it as a strategic part of their wholesale business?
I think that what you look at for arbitration is basically, were the announcements correct and what's wrong with the car. So it's not really a dispute, but you have to know what you're arbitrating, because if it's body damage or something like that off a condition report, that's $800 per panel all around the car. So know what the guidelines are specifically, so that you know exactly what you're looking at and what maybe not correct, that you can just, talk to them about. It's not a dispute. It's literally, hey, this is how it was represented. This is how it looks. That's arbitration.
Okay. So the NAAA framework versus reality. We talk about NAAA guidelines a lot, but how often does the theory of NAAA policy differ from the reality of what actually gets approved in the lane?
Honestly, if you look at, they usually at every auction or by every arbitration, they'll have basically a poster board that says, if this is a green light vehicle, these are the things you can arbitrate. If this is a red light vehicle, these are the things you can arbitrate. If they had said flood damage, one that gets me is if there are any lights on it, that then becomes an as-is car. So you really have to know. My personal opinion is, if you're at the lane, it's as is. You need to be able to go out, touch that car, take it for a test drive, do a scan, see what codes were on there. You need to know what type of vehicle you're buying, especially if it's as is, because those are the ones you can lose the most money on.
So showing up early and doing your homework is obviously going to be a
Or day
huge
before.
cost saver, and also an educational process to getting better and better about buying your vehicles.
And if you're buying it also online, some auctions offer a pre-sale inspection. It's not as costly as the post-sale. It's just kind of like they're test driving the car for you. But if you can't get there and you're bidding on something across country, it's worth it.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be. If you had to put a percentage on it, what makes a slam dunk arbitration win? What would you say the top two things a dealer should be checking immediately post-sale?
That it starts and runs. Sometimes, a lot of times, I would say, especially in the winters in Wisconsin, say for instance, with our auction, we had to jumpstart a lot of those cars, so make sure that it's just the battery, starts and runs. Then drive it in the auction arena before you take it out, and make sure that the engine works. Make sure that there's no tranny slips. Once that vehicle leaves, the arbitration's done. So you need to make sure that within that hour, 2 hours of that hammer dropping, that you drive that car. that's going to help you with the slam dunk because it hasn't left the facility. It's close to the sale time and you can check for that engine noise or whatever.
Gotcha. So let's talk about normal wear and tear. Some people will call that the normal wear and tear trap. This seems to be the biggest category of denied claims. So how do you teach a dealer the difference between normal wear and a legitimate arbitration claim?
I think trusting your mechanic. A lot of dealers do take their mechanics to the sale so that they can actually look at those cars. Like normal wear and tear would be like if wheel bearing, something like that goes out. It's about $150. If you see tire lights on there, it could be just that sensor in the tire. If it has check engine light on, a lot of times that's just you can get a check engine light if you didn't shut the gas cap correctly. So you're going to want to make sure that you're looking at the cars. I can't say this enough. Run the code, see what's out there. Look at it. I have a lot of guys that would, pull up the dipsticks so that they could actually touch the oil, see how dark it is, see if it's clear. When's the last oil change? You don't know all that, so it's best to just look at the vehicle, know what you're buying. A lot of times when it is a seller guarantee, those vehicles have already been looked at when they do the condition report. A lot of the certified vehicles, if they give it like that 7-day certification, that gives you 7 days to look at that car. So that's why those cars bring more. It brings more confidence in that buyer because the seller has already done all the pre-work for that. So it's another way to kind of look at what you want to do with those vehicles.
That's interesting. So there's vague announcements. Dealers often get frustrated by vague announcements like possible engine noise. How much protection does that really give the seller? Can a buyer fight back if the issue is actually much worse?
You're rolling the dice. Yep.
Okay.
Vague announcements are put in there for the seller's benefit, not for the buyer's benefit. As a seller, my opinion is you get the most bids in the lane when you represent the vehicle correctly. I know a guy, Hank Dorn. He was the best. He put it out there like it is. If he didn't know what the car was, he put it as is and he said, I don't know. If he knew something was wrong with it, he would say frame damage, has an engine knock, sell it as it was. Very reputable. Everyone purchased his vehicles because they know he was going to represent it the right way. Or if there was an arbitration, he'd take it back. So, putting that face value on yourself as a seller, those dealers are going to respect it as buyers. And also as a buyer, then you can get to know maybe what dealerships have the right car for your inventory. So a lot of times it isn't just going to the auction. Hey, I'm going to look at some cars. It's, Metro Milwaukee or whatever is running in this lane. I like their cars. They get a lot of trade-ins that fit my budget, my lot. That's where I'm going to go.
Yeah. So again, to your point, taking it all in, looking and just absorbing and noting what's going on before you actually jump right in would put you a lot further ahead in the game. So for the new dealer, what's your rule of thumb for red light or as is sales when it's worth the risk or when they should walk away?
They have to make that decision. Like if they buy a lot of the same type of vehicle, they should know what that vehicle represents and what parts that they can take off that car if something is wrong. So as is, I would say always go to the auction and touch it, feel it, look at it. It just makes it a stronger sale and you know exactly what you're buying. You don't run into that arbitration policy because honestly, if they sell it as is, the only way that that vehicle can then be rejected is if it has any sort of frame damage on it, flood damage, some unannounced condition. Or if the title isn't there and then it takes too long for that title to come in, then you can return that vehicle. But as is yours.
As is states it, doesn't it?
Yep.
In your experience, what's the single most important piece of documentation a dealer should have when they approach the arbitration window? Is it the condition report, the block ticket, or something else?
It's kind of a combination of the two. I would say the block ticket because that shows how the vehicle was announced. So if they did seller guarantee it, if they did guarantee maybe just engine and tranny, but that's it. So it really is what those announcements were, what's covered by arbitration, and then you can kind of go from there. Aftermarket parts, any aftermarket parts put in a vehicle that becomes as is, because then you can take it back to the regular, put all the regular stuff back in there and not have that aftermarket parts. And then a lot of times then the seller can seller guarantee it because it really just depends on how that affects the vehicle itself. For instance, if you have a vehicle and it was previous Canadian, you have to announce that because the specs for the US versus Canada are different. So you really just take that block ticket, know what you need to arbitrate, and watch for those announcements.
Okay. So if I were going to do a pulse check before the vehicle even crosses the block, what pulse check should a dealer be doing in the lane to protect themselves before they even have to think about arbitration?
Again, I go back to either do the pre-sale inspection, know what the vehicle is. If you are going to roll the dice on it, know how much you want to spend. So like if this vehicle is worth only $3,000, I know that it's only worth $3,000, but maybe it only has like minor issues because I've scanned it. I can then take that vehicle, put it on my lot or sell it to another dealer, make it front row ready, and then sell it auction guarantee next time because I'm going to fix it, whatever. So honestly, if you're going to roll the dice, know where your limit will be. So that would be my advice. Like maybe it then goes up to 4 or 5 grand, but you know that you didn't look at it. That isn't what you wanted to get. You're going to take a pass on the car. Don't just jump to it because maybe it fits your inventory. If you haven't looked at it, don't just bid on it knowing that you could be caught with that car. And
Yeah.
especially on the high end stuff. I mean, if it's a high end car, but they're selling it as is and it's like over 10 grand, if you don't know that is going to fit in your inventory and know what you want to do with that car, don't bid on it. It's better to pass than get caught in something that you don't know exactly what you're getting. You don't know if the title's there. You don't know how it was really going to be announced. Just be careful.
Sounds like sound advice. Timing seems to be where most claims die.
Yes.
For a dealer bidding online versus in the lane, what's the golden rule for reporting a claim so they don't miss that window?
So 2 things on that. I've had a couple calls from a couple of our dealers lately that they said they accidentally purchased a car. On a simulcast, you not only have to bid, but you have to say, "Do you want to place this bid?" Okay. So it's double clicking. So that's out the window. You cannot say that you accidentally clicked it. You clicked it twice to get that car. So as an auction, I'm not going to let you out of that. It was an accident on your end because you really didn't know what you were doing. So don't just think, "Oh, I'm just going to go bid online." For one, you probably didn't look at the condition report. And if you did, you could always put an auto bid in there. So you're not going to go above where you want to spend your money. Those auto bids automatically populate then when the vehicle goes through the lanes and you won't miss that car. So some people think, okay, if I put this auto bid in here and it's going to be say 400 and no, well, $4,500, say, okay, that's what I'm going to bid on this car. That when it goes through the lane, it's going to automatically go up to that auto bid. No, it won't. It'll go where the auctioneer starts it. So if they go down to $3,000, it'll start at $3,000 and your bid will be in there and then they'll work it up. So don't feel like just because I put that in there, I'm going to get screwed out. No, that is exactly what you want to do. You know what you want to spend on that car. You'll go up to that point and you've done your research. You've looked at the condition report. If it's sold auction guaranteed, great. Do you need that pre-sale inspection? Do your research. Always do your research.
Yeah, again, some more great advice because I personally on that auto bid would have thought that. So thanks for sharing that. The gray area strategy, I know we talked about it a little bit, but let's re-hit on that. What about the gray area calls, like where the car isn't clearly broken, but it's not right either? How does a
Wholesale
dealer build a
inspection.
case that an arbitrator will actually listen to?
Get a post-sale inspection. If you feel at all uneasy about that vehicle, post-sale inspection. What that does is allow the auction itself to be unbiased. They're going to drive the car, see if there's anything wrong with it. If it does not hit any red flags for them and it clears that post-sale inspection, at least that vehicle is going to be okay within whatever the mechanical, I think it's like, I can't remember what it was. You're going to have to research the NAAA for this, but there's a certain price limit. So it's good up until that price limit. So anything above that being fixed, then that would be arbitratable. So you'll know that it's going to be like $500 or $800 to fix that car to make it right. But you also know that technically the engine's good, the tranny's good, minor fixes will get it perfect.
Yeah, so revisiting those limits would be key. You're not getting bit and knowing, more effectively
And
how
if you're
make
uneasy,
make
post-sale
it work.
inspection. They're supposed to be that person in between the buyer and the seller. That's what that auction is. They invite you to come in, use their facility, but they're also there to make sure everything goes smooth for both of you. They want both of you guys to come back and buy and sell. So use them. use the post-sale inspection, pre-sale inspection. Really does help.
Okay, so the common concept is that arbitrators care about materially affecting the value of the vehicle. How can a dealer effectively prove that an undisclosed issue changed the value of a car in a meaningful way?
The most of the vehicles that I found were rejected for a lot of frame damage. People don't understand how it hits the pillars on the car, floor pans in the
Yeah,
back of the trunk. That's a big one too. Water damage. Check the inside of the glove box and stuff. Especially in Texas, if you have all that flooding, you're going to want to check that car over and make sure that there was no water damage. You'll see it. Especially open the trunk, pull the fabric away, look at that vehicle. Those are the successful stories that I have found because it's right there. That's got frame damage. That's going to affect your profitability because that's going to, take at least $1,500 off that car.
sure.
And yeah, then it's going to also be, what's the next step? Are you going to go sell that at a salvage auction? Will you get more money there? So it brings all that into play. Airbags deployed was another one. You can always check that sometimes on those lower end vehicles. The airbags were deployed and they just put fabric over it and they never were replaced. So there's a lot of stuff to check. So yeah, if you're going to go for the low end, I always say touch, feel, and look at it. I know that's kind of an old school thing, but that's how I found that the most successful wholesalers did their business. Then stand behind it. So if you then sell it to another dealer and you said it was a green light and maybe there was something wrong with it, take the vehicle back, fix it, take it back to the auction and sell it. Stand behind your product as well.
Sure. I mean, that seems like real good business advice as far as honesty, trusting, and people wanting to do business with you. So if I asked you, Becky, the number one mistake that you've seen, if you could wave a magic wand and fix that one rookie mistake that you see new dealers making every single week at the auction, what would it be?
Not looking at a car and thought, oh, that'll fit my inventory. I'm going to buy it. And there's something wrong with it.
Okay. So the mindset of success, what's the difference in behavior between the dealers who consistently succeed in the lanes and those who are constantly battling arbitration claims?
If you have 10 cars you're looking at, make sure you looked at those 10 cars. Don't sit there and bid on other ones that you are not quite sure of. Make sure that you're bidding on what you want.
Okay. Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the real world of auction arbitration. If there's one thing to take away from our conversation today with Rebecca, it's this: arbitration isn't just a process, it's a skill. You don't have to be a victim in the lane when you know what gets approved, what gets denied, and how to negotiate those gray areas. So make sure you're looking them over, doing your homework, and ask questions if you're not sure. Thanks for taking the time today with me, Becky.
You betcha.